administration received international outcry for its zero-tolerance policy on illegal immigration, and now some former top members of the Department of Justice are accused of being a driving force behind the policy that separated families at the border. Tonight, the New York Times published a preliminary report from an inspector general who investigated the administration's policy. The report says during a phone call back in May 2018, then Attorney General Jeff Sessions told federal prosecutors that, quote, "We need to take away children." And he added, if immigrants care about kids, don't bring them in. We won't give amnesty to people with kids. The Inspector General's report also noted that Sessions repeatedly distanced himself from the policy in public, citing an interview from June 2018 when he told a Canadian news station that, quote, "We never really intended to separate children." Now, the report also claims that Sessions and former Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein pushed to separate parents from their children, even as infants. In a statement, Rosenstein insisted he never ordered anyone to prosecute a case. Now, according to the ACLU, about 5,000 families have been separated at the border. It is unclear how many of those families are still separated. The organization calls the Trump administration's policy, quote, child abuse. Kenneth, Mona.
All right, Andrew Denver, they're live in Washington. Thank you. Facebook says it's cracking down on all pages and groups linked to QAnon conspiracy theory. The company says all accounts that represent QAnon, whether they promote violence or not, will be removed. Critics say the crackdown may be too little, too late.
Thousands of Americans are taking shelter in Cancun as one of the biggest storms to ever hit that region slams the shore. Hurricane Delta has just been downgraded to a Category 3, but it's set to become the record 10th named storm to make landfall in the U.S. during one season. Here's ABC's Andrew Fujii.
Overnight, thousands of tourists trapped in the bullseye as Hurricane Delta bears down on Cancun.
We're just trying to get out of here.
The powerful storm catching vacationers off guard. Airports packed as travelers scramble to get out. Officials in Cancun clearing out more than 30,000 people staying in hotels along the coast. Many were moved to these makeshift shelters inland. Along the entire coastline, heavy rain, high winds, and dangerous storm surge slamming beaches. And now,
I am issuing a mandatory evacuation for all tourists and visitors who are currently visiting or planning to visit our coastal communities.
Alabama and Louisiana declaring states of emergency. Some evacuations already underway.
This storm is already proving to be a much stronger storm than Sally.
Delta is set to make its way up to the Gulf Coast later this week, hitting the Louisiana and Mississippi coast as a Category 2 storm late Friday into Saturday, possibly slamming the same areas recently devastated by Hurricanes Laura and Sally. These floodgates in Morgan City, Louisiana, being closed. Flood barriers also set up in New Iberia.
Anyone from Port Arthur and Beaumont over to, I'd say, right along the Alabama state line needs to be on the lookout.
Weary officials near New Orleans even posting this sign, asking the famous storm chaser June Cantori to stay home. I'm Andrea Fujii, ABC News.
Andrea, thank you. Now let's take a look at your Wednesday forecast. As we mentioned, Hurricane Delta was just downgraded to a Category 3 storm, but it's expected to get stronger again. The newest forecast has it slamming into the Louisiana coast late Friday as a Category 2 or weak Category 3 hurricane. Checking the radar dry across much of the country, some rain in New England and Florida today. Looking at today's high temperatures, New York and Boston hit the 70s. Most of the South will be in the 80s and into the 80s in Southern California, 103 in Phoenix. Coming up, one of America's favorite desserts is getting a new name.
But first, caught on camera, a young girl is kidnapped on the street. The news overnight about the suspect now under arrest.
And the new tribute overnight to a rock and roll legend.
In times like these, the news-making events happen here. ABC News.
President Trump meeting face-to-face with one of the world's most brutal dictators, Kim Jong-un.
The president.
To trust him. I do trust him, yeah. He trusts me and I trust him.
Ivanka Trump.
I have to ask you about your emails. Your father had taken Hillary Clinton to task for this.
There just is no equivalency.
So the idea of lock her up doesn't apply to you.
No.
Comey.
How strange.
he still alive?
Yes.
It's a big statement.
And now, in a year with so much on the line, we're right there.
Good evening tonight from Washington. A very busy news night.
America's #1 news source, ABC News, straightforward.
I'm very thankful that these men are fine.
Tuesday, October 13th, we respect your wishes. The Bachelorette is back.
This is the perfect place to fall in love.
But respect the rumors.
Do not ever talk to me like that.
It's true.
What?
This is the most shocking season ever.
Makes me sick.
We
That's crazy.
do. Flair.
Congratulations, you've just blown up The Bachelorette.
The Bachelorette. See premiere Tuesday, October 13th on ABC.
We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. No bull, no spin. Now imagine getting your news like that. Just give it to me straight. ABC News, straightforward.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. Start Here.